All right, thank you all for joining for Human Design Catalyst, Monday, November 13th, 2023. And I'm joined here by Brian. We have Richard Corbett and Brandy Jordan. We have Johnny Cruz here. And then Mike is off screen. So that's his hand waving into the.
Yeah. You look so dapper.
Yeah, Mike, maybe. What about this?
I'll do one after a few minutes.
Okay, he says he will.
We might get some stragglers in here.
He'll be our surprise guest. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, they're making a few jokes about, but all in good fun. So yeah, we're kind of doing a new arrangement this week, and we'll see how it works. If anyone has a hard time hearing, please speak up because I'm doing my best to enforce people talking into the mic. But if we get in the heat of the moment and we're all excited and you can't hear, just by all means, please let us know. And so yeah, we're really going to do more of an open thing this week because we're joined by both Richard and Brandy. We're kind of thinking we might be able to do some Q&A with them, or even some ad hoc chart work with anyone who's attending, or if there's a topic that anyone is really excited about. The reason I haven't really been as gung-ho about topics is that Mike and I have been doing our centers class, which is going really well. We're in our second week, but it is also scheduled on Mondays. Hi there, Monique. I see you've joined. Wonderful to have you. Nancy, Ricky, Dave, Nicola, everyone. But yeah, because we're doing the centers class now, it's a lot. And last week we ended up doing our first class, and then we had a meet and greet, and then we had a Q&A session, and then we had kind of a focused study group. And there's just been so much that's I don't mind sharing some of what we've been talking about with the centers. It's certainly interesting, but I just haven't been able to really prepare a whole extra track of topics. But I can definitely, we could just talk about some of the things that have been interesting lately, things that have been coming up. I've been having some great conversations with James Alexander, who is currently staying with me, so that's a real treat. And I tried to get him to come tonight. I don't think he's going to make it, but next week we are going to try to kind of wrangle him as a guest speaker to lead next week's session. But we've had some really good conversations, a lot of really interesting things about the substructure, and I know he's been talking to you a lot, Johnny. Did you guys have you had a pretty cool conversation in the kitchen today? Anything you'd want to share?
Well, we were just talking about interpersonal life, so it wasn't so much HD related, but just talking about our lives and the dramas and, stuff like that.
It sounded like he was giving you a reading, so from what I heard.
No, that was yesterday.
Okay.
And because we're both triple split, so he was informing me about the triple split process and how he experiences being a triple split versus how I experience it.
Any hints there?
He was saying that triple splits, you being a single definition, you don't need to, all your parts are connected and communicate with each other. Whereas a triple split, we have three different parts, and so it takes a while for us to really gain information. And when we do gain it, we synthesize it from three different aspects. So we have like multiple paradigms that come and eventually evolve into this one super paradigm. But it's a longer process. And so he was saying when he was initially going into human design, he was, seemed like he was trailing behind everyone, but eventually he ended up being like the top of the class because he felt like he was going slow, but eventually when it all became synthesized, he had such a mastery of it coming from these three different disparate parts of themselves. It became synthesized into this kind of true.
If there's a kind of kind of thing that kind of comes to mind for me is that it's a long journey, and that's something that he wasn't talking about in the context of triple split, but we had a conversation where I had not even realized, he spent all this time with the Center for Integral Studies and with people studying spiral dynamics, and he really just had such a long journey. And it's not that I, as a single definition, haven't had a long journey. I mean, I certainly have through many different paradigms as well. Mm-hmm. But in each case, I'm sort of coming to the paradigm, taking it in and building as I go, and it's a
Yeah.
very linear process of one to the next to the next. And maybe for the triple split, there is a little more of multiple balls in the air at once that don't really make a lot of sense at the time, but then later ping off each other. And yeah,
And another thing being a triple split is that interpersonally, when you meet someone and develop a relationship, that person isn't going to see every aspect of you, and like being cool with that. And, like they see these sides of me, but they won't see this other side of me. Whereas maybe a single definition, not that you're like a one-note person or anything, but like it's just like everything. It's easier to get all flavors of because it's all activated and in sync with each other. Versus me or maybe Mike's also triple split. Maybe you could speak about being a triple split as well, Mike.
yeah. I don't know if Mike would be interested in joining here for a moment, and anybody remotely as well.
I actually want to talk about Johnny. No, just because like, well, because you're such a great counterexample of triple splits. Because when you're a triple split, you're going to have a lot of definition, and so you're very likely to have emotional authority. You don't. So your whole version of this whole triple split taking your time thing is different because you're not waiting for emotional clarity too. And you have the 515, which is another set of timing. And me and James were actually talking about your chart for that reason. That's like there's 3 really significant, interesting timing things about your design. And it's an interplay that you rarely see the 2 of, let alone all 3 in one design.
I see. So the aspect of having the aspect of having an undefined solar plexus, and then the 515, which is causing me to have to be in my own flow, or I should be in my own flow,
Right.
to be sacredly responding correctly for myself.
Yeah. Well, the stereotype is the 3 things that a reader is most likely to tell you it's so important to follow your own timing about are emotional authority, 515, and undefined root, actually. But then triple splits, it's kind of like whatever other things in your chart are affecting your timing, one guarantees that it's going to be slower because it's going to take time to find to get the circulation going and to be linked up as many ways as possible and stuff. But anyway, anytime I meet a triple split who doesn't have emotional authority, I'm just really curious about what that synthesis process looks like for you. I like your term, what was it? Supraordinate. What did you say a minute ago?
Oh, when you talk about synthesizing and create this super paradigm? Or?
Yeah, the super paradigm. Yeah. Because it's true. It's like each, when we're alone, we do experience each of our islands separately, and it's like each person will maybe, because some people don't link you up at all. Have you ever spent a lot of time with someone where you remain a triple split with them?
From what I gather, most people bridge at least one of my splits.
Oh, sorry.
Most people bridge at least one split at the very least. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. It's unusual to have that sustained triple splitness with someone, but it is an interesting relationship, I find. Can I?
Well, then let's maybe, since we're just talking about definition, and that's and
Also, I
since
kind of want to treat that sound. That's
yeah,
Do
go
you
for
hear
it. Yeah.
I don't think it's me.
It's me.
So yeah, I think because we have Brandy and Richard here, maybe just talking about each of your own definition. I know we have single and split definition. Oh, you're both split. Oh, you are. Okay. You need to learn your chart a little better. And then your split definition as well, right? Single definition. Single definition. So yeah, we have 3 singles, 2 splits, and 2 triple splits here. No quad splits, no reflectors. Yeah, and if anybody remotely wants to kind of talk about what they've found, but I guess maybe just hearing both of you talk about split definition, that would be interesting.
Well, my split is either the 23 or the 11. And what I've learned is as soon as I got into my body in, the 2nd or 3rd year, then I could feel the rest of myself. But I'd lived from the spaces in my mind. And now I'm so grateful that this is where my split is. This is the easiest place in my imagination for a split to be. in that it is my mind is my mind. It is my outer authority. I get to watch it be what it bees, and then show up and only trust it in the spaces and places where outer authority is called for. And other than that, I just listen to my body, and this body is pretty brilliant in the way that it moves through the world. So they are two totally different beings, and then there is the watcher that watches both of them happen. And they speak to each other sometimes, and there's definite two different voices, two different attitudes, two different motivations, two different perspectives, two different everything, and they're very distinct.
Are they conscious or unconscious?
Just a moment here. So I have her chart, and I can pass this around, and for others who are seeing as well. People can't hear you if you talk, so okay, you can ask the question if you'd like. But I just like to kind of I wanted to say, so just to be clear that everybody's following, she is split on 23 and 11. Those are the bridging gates. And so when you're looking at a body graph like this, and I'm showing it on the screen, I can pass this around as well. You can see right where that split is. It's a little bit small, but you can see between the ajna and the throat, and that's kind of what you were saying. All right, Sunny.
I just asked for it.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So I'll just kind of show people, and then I'd love to hear you talk a little more about that.
Yeah.
So you were kind of saying, from when you entered into human design compared to now, you've become a lot more comfortable.
A lot more comfortable. Not only more comfortable with the design, but I could see how I had my whole life been looking to assimilate my knowledge into the world. I had been looking to be 23 and 11 my entire life. That's all I was looking to be and express, and I thought every problem that I had was because I couldn't 23 or 11. And so giving that up and surrendering allowed me to see the beauty in what I am, and the beauty in not having the 11 and the 23, the beauty in being able to connect with an 11 and a 23 in such an amazing way, and then what comes of that when that happens. So the purpose behind that split has become very apparent to me, and it's become one of my greatest joys.
Yeah, I've noticed. I mean, I'm obviously single definition, so I don't have that experience. But where I have an undefined center with a harmonic gate pointing at it, it can feel like something I'm lacking, or at least when I first kind of learned about it, it was like, oh, if only I had this, I need this. And then I can get really kind of become a human doormat for people who have that, because I could just allow them infinite, kind of give them infinite leeway. And then over time, actually being relieved, like, I don't have to do that. I can let them do that. I can just let them take care of that. So
That's right. And with 43 and 23, and with impact and proving, and with all of the dynamics in my chart, I really wanted to be able to have you understand me. And that was something that I realized, that you will understand me in your own way. It's not that you understand me the way I understand me. And the beauty is in allowing you to have your own experience of me. That 43-23, I really wanted to be able to express myself, and to have you understand me the way that I understood me, and have you regurgitate back to me somehow that you knew what I was saying to you. But now the joy in my life experience is in having the mirror of me through you, in whatever that means. Yeah.
And from our talk today, you're having this long-term transit. You
Oh my
got
gosh.
Uranus in 23.
Yeah, so
What's
we could
that
talk
like?
about this. So Uranus in my chart is in 43, and right now it's in 23. And I'm in Uranus opposition. So there's a lot happening. And the sun is conjunct Jupiter. There's a lot happening right now. Hi, Ivy. Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to say that's a really cool point, that for anyone who has a Uranus activation in one of the three opposition channels, 3740, 4323, or 3420, you're going to have, it's just kind of cool. Like, it's almost like your innate, Uranus is meeting itself on the other end and creating this temporary life force energy. And it's temporary, but it lasts a couple of years, so yeah.
And so I am shocking myself. I am along for this ride. The things that come out of my mouth sometimes are the way that I'm presenting myself, the I made an AI image today of what I thought 43 was, and Richard encapsulated it perfectly. And he said it's like the insight is like blowing out the back of somebody's head, and that's what it feels like right now. Like every color in the world is, every synesthesia, every experience of dimensional reality is accessible to me, and it feels like it's blowing out the back of my head. And it's really just holding on. You know, I also know that I don't know anything until later. And so I'm just holding on and collecting and holding on and collecting and experiencing myself and the world around me. And I know the truth will come later. And so I think that's what I'm just sitting in the midst of. There's a whole new expression coming out of me. I have moved from the place I've been my whole life to a new place. I mean, there is just brand new experiences coming. I am not, I have come out of my shamanic closet in a really deep way, and I'm very proud of myself, and the impact that I'm making is really humbling. Just this, what is coming through me in this individual truth has been, I don't even know what's happening. I can't even tell you. We're all just experiencing it.
Well, we love hearing it, Brandy, because I'm also hearing the Uranus opposition, and not only in that channel, but in your life.
Yeah.
And I always find it so fascinating to talk to people before, during, and after. Right? It's it is an exciting time for sure. Tumultuous sometimes. Uranus, as we were talking about in the talk today, it's just so surprising. Right? It's just, it can be out of nowhere.
Yeah. And I wanted to add what came alive in me when you said that is the anchoring myself, is the gift of where Saturn is, I believe, the anchoring myself in my selfness, and that I'm just surrendering everything, and finding equanimity, and finding personal individuated expression in each and every second. In the midst of all the change. And because of that, it doesn't feel like a cage. It doesn't feel scary so much as it feels exciting and adventurous. So I think that the cosmos is really supporting this Uranus opposition in such a beautiful way. I'm really grateful.
Well, we should, as Jonah was saying, we need the data of people that have Uranus in one of those three channels. Right. And see what each of those channels sounds like with Uranus at both ends at a Uranus opposition. That's pretty cool to think about.
I'm writing. I called it the Bee Ching. I am just writing and writing. I'm writing the lines. I'm just expressing things that have lived in here, I think, for a little while. So thank you for saying that.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Should
What's
we
it like
keep
for you to be a split
a
definition?
split? Yeah. So I'm a yeah. Oh, sorry. Did somebody say something? Oh, sorry.
Just the split definition.
You want to say something about it?
Oh no, I'm just also one.
Okay, yeah. So for my chart, I have I'm an emotional manifesting generator. I have an open head ajna, and then the only center open below the throat is the ego center, or undefined. My channel of judgment is split off from all the other definition, and the 4 bridging gates are the 16, the 50, the 9, and the or I guess those 3, yeah. 16, 9, 50, and 57. So there's 4 bridging gates. The ones I'm so familiar with are the 16 and the 9, because that really would link that logic circuit together. But just focused on skills has been a real thing in my. I was always, I gotta learn something new. It was just such a problem. Yeah. Wow. Big. It was like a train, but it was a truck. I guess for working with that, it became first intellectually understanding it, and then learning how to feel it out. Was that that channel of judgment, that correction, was always kind of my first foot forward for a long time, right? So I was really kind of wrapped in that. So with strategy and time and experience and all, learned to just kind of put that in the back seat, and that kind of took care of my split for me. Knowing not to chase after those missing gates. They're always there. The 16-9, of course, I have lots of friends. When I look at charts of people that are close to me, makes sense. Oh my goodness, they have 16-9 because there's 2 of the 4 gates. And that, that's an opposition that it just happens, right? So the other thing interesting, I think, for all of us to look at, like for myself, my sun Earth is 52-58. So that is part of the split. And so I'm just, curious about thoughts about that, where our incarnation splits like that. For me, all I can say just with that thought is that it's just been, again, back to the body, like trusting my energy, following it. The gate 52 is about being still and stopping. And I see myself do that. The line 2 comes out and I'm like, I'm not going out. Like I need to be home, be alone, wherever. And that happens a lot, but it kind of is what it is. So yeah, I mean, certainly strategy, right? It certainly showed me the way to be comfortable with how that worked.
Mm-hmm.
I have a little comment here. So just one of my comments is that, I used to joke that we all need we all need relationships. Some of us are also designed for them. But then I actually changed that to say we're all designed for relationships. Some of us are also equipped for them, which is just a little better because we are all designed to be with people. We are social beings. We all need relationship. It's just that being single definition and then to a degree triple split or even quad split or being a reflector, it sometimes doesn't feel that we are equipped to understand how valuable that relationship is to where we will actually compromise for it. Because the moment you have to compromise, being single definition, something in you goes, well, there's 8 billion people in this world.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
And I don't know that a single definition, it's just my sense, is not meant to compromise. I believe that your authority, your trajectory will lead you to the people, places, and spaces in which being you does not require any compromise to get love.
Okay, yeah. In the sense of compromising, in a negative way, but there's also just a simple learning how to relate. And so the interesting thing that I've found is that in many cases, two single definition people can only really stay together in a relationship because they have split definition mentors or split definition family members, or simply because they've learned enough from the split definition people in their lives. I mean, this is kind of maybe Ra at his most hyperbolic, where he said, okay, really, to be in a relationship, you kind of need to be split, and then splits tend to stick together. If they didn't, if there was some mandatory rule that all splits had to be with single definition or triple split or something like that, then the most you're really getting is 80% of humanity that's happily coupled. But because splits tend to be able to work together with each other so well, you actually end up with far less than that. And there's probably at least 50% of humanity that has a real difficulty. Now, this is partly Ra just being hyperbolic. He loved to say these dramatic, huge statements. But there is something interesting if we kind of think that designs are really suited for different things. Well, what is the split suited for? Becoming wise about the areas of bridging, particularly in relationship. So not every gate can be a bridge. I think only 61 can be bridges because of, even less than that. 58 can be bridges because there's no bridge between the head and ajna, for instance. But everything else could be a potential bridge. So we have this 50 some odd gates that really you could write a book of the 58 keys to relationship, right? Yeah. And these are going to be the 58 possible bridging gates. And it's really a way of understanding the bridging gate purely in the context of its value for relationship. And so just as an example, I have Richard's chart here, and so 16 normally doesn't really have to do with relationship, normally has this skills and logic and all this stuff, but you could also say, hey, there are relationship skills. You might not be able to learn how to love each other more, but you can learn how to care for each other more. You might not be able to improve in the emotional side, but you can certainly improve on the splenic side. You can learn how to care better and how to, and so on. And so it's just kind of interesting to see, like, some of these obviously have values, like gate 50, obviously you can learn how to be more responsible in caring for each other. But something like 16 or even 9, like what's 9 about? You can learn that the details matter, right? I guess you can learn that it's important that these things, or 57, you can learn that a relationship can survive through paying attention to its intuition and to, tone of voice and timbre. Yeah, good point, Ivy. Ivy said sound.
Because even with the 57 and without it, there's this fear of the future.
The fear of the future.
And it is with the 57. I've noticed, I've been around, as a fourth line, my shadow of abandonment has been troublesome in my relationships, and I was split in the 57 and the 36, where 36 right now is action without awareness with Neptune, and it's veiled. So my Neptune's been sort of triggered with the 38.1 with my relationships, and it's been pretty damaging, actually. But I've become more wise with the 57, and the 57, I've noticed with the people who have 57 and the 36 are very, very afraid of the future, even though they have so much, because they have so much awareness of the now, but I don't have, I have to watch my own split, my own transference, and my own deconditioning still in that area.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
In the 9 and the
And we also, no, I would love that. I want to make sure we don't miss. I see that Lisita has something she wants to say, and I would just and then love to hear what you have to share. So please, if you'd like to share anything, Lisita.
Yeah. Well, Randy Richmond, the famous projector, who used to live in Arizona and was privately tutored by Ra, had an approach about single split definition where he said those people are prepared for relationship because they already have a dialogue going within themselves. And actually, the way I think about bridge gates is rather than it helping me, it's a temptation to behave as if I didn't have that dialogue going any longer. And as if because I have one gate which bridges my split, which is gate 34. And actually, right now, there's a transit of gate 34, I think, with Mercury. I'm not sure about that. But anyway, I've been in a bad mood. So I actually think staying as a split is healthy for me.
I really love that observation. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I know Mike loved it too. He's off camera, but he got a lot out of that. So please, I'd love to hear what you have to say, Brandy.
I was just going to relate to that split in that Richard and I have talked a couple of times about how my in the now my 57 bridges his split and his 23 bridges my split. And we've spoken about how my intuitive in the now awareness kind of relaxes him in moments, and his ability to take my nebulae and turn it into actual concrete sentences is something that I love. 6447. Yeah. Yep. Uh-huh.
I was just asking this question. It's a split definition. How do I, with my 57?
Oh, hold on.
Okay. I was just asking myself this question. Being a split definition, you have those questions going on. How do I have these relationships with the 57 and make it coherent? Also, I have the 10.5, and I keep getting punished. So it's like, how do we put those into concrete forms that work? So,
this isn't a doing; it's just a being. Yeah. And so we just witnessed that my being soothed him, and his being soothed me. It's not a doing. And so it gets to be you recognizing the beings, around you and following that truth into the right ones. Yeah, that's my thought in that.
I like that expression, the beings versus the doings. Yeah.
Yeah, we're human beings, not human doings.
I was going to invite anyone who's split definition remotely, like I know you are, Dave, or anyone else who would be interested in having their chart looked at, and we could do a little off-the-cuff analysis. I don't know if that would be okay with you, Dave, or if anyone else wants to, or Lisita, anyone that. I don't know.
It's okay with me, but if somebody else is really excited about it, they can definitely go instead. I'm kind of very mellow today. Not going to be all jumping on the convo, but feel free to look at my chart.
Mike started chanting "dox the chart." For those who don't know what doxing is, it's kind of a internet speak term for an invasion of privacy. So
tell everybody my chart's address.
Yeah, I hope we are not
standing outside my house with torches.
Brian says we have an app for that. So.
Asking for my chart.
So here's Dave's chart, and maybe if you have anything that you want to say, Brandy or Richard, and if anybody else wants to take a look and kind of pass it around, we certainly can.
Can I say something really basic?
Yeah. You want me to do you want to say it into the mic, or I can just repeat it? Okay.
So whenever I analyze a split definition, I always try to combine all the bridging gates, like into a kind of story, and it's really interesting.
I love that. Yeah, Ashley said. This is Ashley Gray Duncan. She's saying that when she does chart analysis for split definition, she well, I mean, we can just try it. We'll just try it. She says that she turns the keynotes of the bridging gates into a story. So let's see what story comes out from Dave's chart.
Yeah, please.
You want to go?
You can go.
Well, the bridging gates I'm seeing here are the 57, the 30, and the 55. Am I missing one? And the 50.
Just the two from the
Yeah.
the root to the SP.
30 and 55. The gate of spirit and the gate of desire. Actually, Saturn's in 55 for quite a while.
I was wondering how you feel, Dave. How you doing?
I'm okay with that in the transits.
What passion and desire?
But you don't want a 39 in our aura.
Right. Do you have desires that are unsatiated?
Never.
Of course not.
Well, I can see. Sorry, just one thing I can see off the bat would be that I mean, it can look all different ways, of course. So I don't want to make too much of a prognostication here, but this feeling that if you get what the 55 and the 30 represent, that you will finally have peace, and there's this sort of illusory holy grail, and the real holy grail is living your design, where the life force energy of your channels fills your life with vitality through its proper functioning. But the fantasy grail is the bridging gate that never actually brings peace. In fact, it's not even in channels that bring peace. I mean, they're not even anything about that. But if we think about what craving the spirit, I mean, on one hand, this could be craving freedom. It could also be craving fullness. It could be craving passion. It could be that if I get the passion, if I get the fullness, if I have the freedom to really, find my spirit, then I'll finally be at peace. Now, of course, we do have an actual channel that is also in that same stream of sexuality, that stream of passion, which is the 2212. So I can see how there is an element of truth that finding that passion does bring the peace in the sense of the healthy functioning of that channel. But there's just this possibility of getting hung up on, if only I can get this, then I get the peace, and it might not actually bring peace, right? And then for the 30, I guess that would be, I mean, it's the same issue where you have 36, 35. It's really interesting where the bridge is in these same streams of the channels. So it's kind of like the mind might not be that far off. It's just
Right.
looking in slightly the wrong place. Yeah.
And then 57, like fear of tomorrow. So what passion, what desire would make me not afraid of?
But he doesn't have 57 though.
Oh, that was
No. So I can show you the body graph. Or yeah, so he has,
55 and 30.
he's a double-barreled manifester with that 1222. That's not me. In fact, Dave even said that wasn't something you made up. I guess that's something from Raw. I didn't realize that. I thought that was one of Dave's witticisms, of which he has plenty. But yeah, I don't know.
I see a melancholy for experience. The desire to have that social, emotional, sexual experience or connection or any kind of experience, and maybe the melancholy that comes with not having the fullness of that in that split.
All that kind of shit. Yeah, for sure.
All that kind of shit.
Well, that's what I was going to say, Dave. I'd like to hear from you. Tell us, what's it like?
Man, I'm not feeling very open right now, but that was pretty good.
You have 1222, so I know that openness can also be closedness. But yeah, I mean, may I share at least what you shared with me that I thought was pretty profound?
Sure.
Yeah, so David said that when he was really getting deep into the bridging gates and the not self-conditioning, you had maybe even I don't know if it's fair to call it an existential moment. This might also be that kind of questioning of your direction that is so familiar to the undefined G, but where you kind of looked at so much of your creative spirit and so much of your creations and how you'd lived your life, and had this question of, is it inauthentic? Is it not really me? And I think we're all lucky that you eventually came around to no, it's not, and that we can get so terrified when we have these moments of questioning ourselves, but it's not simply that all of your creative endeavors, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. For those who haven't seen Dave's work as Neutrino Radio, it is so vital, and you can't fake vitality. You can't fake the real, right? So, I mean, I can see how you might have thought, is this me chasing the spirit, and is this me chasing desire and chasing these bridging gates? But I don't think it is. I think that it's much more an authentic expression of who you are, and it really shines through. So I just wanted to say that.
Thanks, Jonah.
Yeah. But I'm also interested just in, even not in your case particularly, but just these bridging gates and their value for relationships, because every gate that's a potential bridge has something that can help relationships work and be vital and be successful and so on. And in this case, I would say it's that every relationship has to contend with it has to contend with the spirit in some sense. You can't neglect the spirit of a relationship, the spirit in a relationship. It has to contend with uncertainty. It has to contend with not always knowing, and has to be able to deal with that ambiguity, and it needs to be able to surrender to and to also really accept that abundance is a matter of spirit. That's some of the wisdom of the 55 there, which is, again, not saying that you're here to be a bastion of that in the way that those who actually have a 55 activation have. But you're here to be able to see the other's spirit and see who has a greedy spirit and who thinks that they can fill up their life in a way that actually is not. I mean, if you look at what 55 is about, it's really how special it can be to be in a relationship with someone where you might not have a lot of money, you might not have a lot of anything, you might not even have a lot of food, but at least you have shelter, at least you have a warm fire, at least you have each other. And so there is this beauty of two people coming together and that spirit awareness of something that's bigger than either of them, and that's this shared love for each other. And so that can be so important. And then from the 30, just being able to accept the fates and to be able to really risk, even though they might be taken away from you, something might intervene. I mean, gate 30 is a very like Romeo and Juliet, like star-crossed lovers, different social spheres, the impossible love also, which I know that whole melancholic circuitry loves so much. So yeah, to combine those keynotes, kind of like you were doing, that it's the kind of melancholy of the unrequited love, and yet realizing that it doesn't have to be a torment, that you can have just as much sweetness and just as much abundance when life gets in the way. It's just as special to know that person, to have that connection with that person. And so that these are valuable aspects of the human experience.
Richard keeps talking about what Lasita says, spiritual equanimity, and that's what makes the difference between suffering or not suffering.
And you can also choose not to see the truth and accept the truth. And when you don't accept the truth of that 30, you prolong the experience, and it actually goes downhill from there until you're ready to put the awareness into what that recognition of that emotion or what your experience was about. And it's a tango with the fates. The quicker you are as a projector to accept the fates with the 30, the better your life is. But the slower you are and the more resistance you put, you don't just put resistance into that 30 or the recognition of that emotion or that experience to prolong that experience. you end up putting resistance into your whole life experience, is what I've found. So you can cause yourself way more pain than necessary.
And I'd love to hear what you have to say, Lasita. I see.
So rather than focusing on the bridge gate, I would focus on the fact that he has different circuitry in the two islands of definition. And because the manifestor definition is what creates his type as a between the 36 and the 35 and the 22 and the 12, the fact when you find yourself, Dave, focusing more on that projector split and feeling that transition, that ambition, that obligation to the tribe, that maybe you can return to the primary island of definition and remember to go ahead and be artistic and do new things. So I don't know if that has relevance for you.
Sure. Yeah, there's something there. I identify with my tribalness quite a bit. Like, it's hard to not get like caught up in that. And I don't take issue with it. Like I like tribalness as far as like my relationships. Like I don't know. I'm like when people aren't loyal, or like when people are like, I don't know, like don't understand like why I like, I don't know, having dinner with people or something. It's just like certain things. It's like, why don't you, if you don't get tribal, if you don't understand the tribal thing, like, what, I don't know if we like, how can we really relate to each other? But then, yeah, all the individual and collective is definitely like part of my manifestoryness and like my authority and stuff. So there's for sure this like needing to connect those two things to each other.
Well, and you also having personality sun in gate 22 and your design earth in gate 12. I mean, that's a very strong individual and manifester. And I would just also point out that a lot of times when you have something that's the pure expression of the tribal is actually, I mean, yeah, having dinner and food and all these things. But what I've noticed is that with individual circuitry, it will add one of the keynotes that I would use for the individual is personal. And the tribe actually doesn't necessarily like the personal preference. Like, I would say that I've met pure individuals who kind of ask me the question, how is it that when I read about the tribe, I read so much about, for instance, supporting each other and having dinner together and all these things that I love doing, and I look at their chart and they're a 214. And they've spent the last 20 years working so hard supporting their family. And you might miss that and say, oh, they've been conditioned to be tribal. No, that's the personal aspect of individuality, that they have a personal connection to these people, that these are their favorite people, that they're so close to them that they'll do anything for them, but it's not out of tribal loyalty.
The individual has to be in love with something, with anything, like for the passion to be there, to be part of it. And like without that, the individual doesn't really care. So yeah, there's just like a different kind of commitment or loyalty to those things and people.
Let's see if I can do this. All right. Oh, okay. All right, please.
I think okay. So sometimes I've found that individuals, I just talked to someone yesterday, she's individual, like integration and collective, no tribal. And she would talk about how, like, she wants to be supported by her family. And so I was asking her, like, because in the past she was very supportive towards them, and then she didn't receive support when she needed it. And I was like, well, were you actually being supportive, or are you just trying to get something from them? So I find this sometimes with like individuals. I'm a peer individual, like they'll expect support, but the thing is, like, if you're not being empowered in yourself as an individual, you're not going to get support, right? Like the first thing is you have to feel empowered in who you are.
And I want to add that that's how the individual profile is in relationship. That's how the individual, that's how the single definition shows up in relationship, is in that way.
This is who I am, take it or leave it, kind of. Yeah.
And you're my favorite person, and I'll show up and be my individual single definition self as homage to this relationship.
Well, there's that point from Ra where he kind of says, with the individual, you have this real paradox where they're stepping out on the street and you grab them by the shoulder and say, watch out, and they just snarl at you and growl and just frown and say, kind of, how dare you disempower me, I can take care of myself. Then if they actually do have an accident, and you're kind of like, I told you so. That's the worst thing you can ever do, because then they actually want you to be there for them when they actually need you. But when they don't, it's disempowering. It's like doting. They don't want to be doted on. They don't want to be over cared for. They don't want the helicopter parent or the hovering or any of that stuff. It's like, leave me alone. I can take care of myself until I need you. And then we have this personal connection. So
One more little piece of insight is that don't forget, with me, we're talking about the 1222, which is the only social channel and individual circuitry and is often mistaken for tribal or collective.
that's a really good point, that the 1222 does have this special function of being social, and it's a little bit like, I'm one of you, I'm one of the tribal people. And then, you know, I think Ra had a really dark joke, is that they're the most likely to, you know, go on some sort of terror spree or something that you just never see coming, right? They're the ones.
I can vouch for that. Yeah.
The sleeper agent. They're kind of a sleeper agent for the individual to get into the collective, to get the mutation across. So. And of course, Ra himself had gate 12. Yeah.
And I believe that Osama bin Laden had that 2212 channel.
Oh my
And
word.
we know how open he was. Ha ha.
Wow. Yeah, and I know that Ra had the 12, and that was part of the way that he was able to reach people, and I feel lucky to have gate 12 myself. Yeah, it's an interesting channel for sure. All right, well, anyone else who'd like to either look at their body graph, we could talk more about definition, if you guys have any more to share.
I was kind of
Okay,
curious
yeah.
about, I know I've got the full moon in Saturn right now, and I believe it's gate 10, line 5.
You're saying the full moon is conjunct Saturn? Or the new moon?
Yeah, the new moon. No?
It's conjunct Uranus and
Uranus.
It's
got a
conjunct Uranus,
sorry.
Ivy says.
conjunct moon
Here,
and,
I'll I can share what the
Mars.
current transits are as well.
the Sun, Moon, and Mars, and then across from that is Uranus and Taurus. In the new moon.
Well, and I know that you did your transit report today,
Yeah.
Richard. So if you want to speak at all to the transits, and here's the current.
Scorpio new moon.
Yeah, it's a Scorpio new moon, and I know you guys also just did a new moon talk. So I'd love to hear more about that. Or did you have before I hand it over, do you have a question in particular about the 10-5? You were saying that it looks like the moon has already moved. Okay, well, I'll just hand it over if you want to talk at all about the current transits or the moon or any of that. Sure.
Yeah, so the new moon was at 2:27 a.m. this past evening. So we're still within the 24-hour window. But we had the sun and moon 43. It was at line 2 at the time of the exact time of the new moon, and now it's probably moved on to gate 34. Which we had the Earth in gate 23, so that's how we had the channel of structuring brought in, which has also got Uranus in the 23 as well. Uranus is moving retrograde for about another month. So just a lot of intensity.
And Mars in 43.
Having Uranus in Taurus opposite the new moon in Scorpio, which was also very close to Mars, and which was also in gate 43.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of energy. That's a lot of energy. And yeah, we went a little further in depth in it in the transit report, which is in the Discord. So anybody, if you didn't get a chance to see it, check it out. And Brandy and I also went even further in this over the weekend. But I think what we're seeing is just the Scorpio season is a deep time. It is a melancholic time. 4 of the 5 gates in the sign of Scorpio are individual circuitry, and a lot of the outer planets have been in individual circuitry. So it's been a strong theme right now.
It has. And something Richard brought to my attention that I thought was fascinating was that 28 was active in...
For the first eclipse. For the
first
solar eclipse, October 14th, the sun was in gate 28. We have Saturn in gate 55. That's what you're talking
that's
about.
what I'm talking about. Exactly that.
And Jupiter in gate 24. So all of the potential awareness gates of the 3 awareness centers in individual circuitry have been extremely highlighted this past month.
24. 24. 24, 28, and 55.
Yeah.
So the story that you could tell there.
Yeah,
But this-
Mike pointed out that 2 of those are the so-called deafness gates, the 28 and the 55.
Yeah. So the story that tells, the what is being yielded here, and being able to assimilate and articulate our individual spirit purposefully, rationally, now. It's pretty potent to me. That's pretty potent.
Yeah. Our individual awareness, and with Uranus in 23 on this long-term transit, as Jonas said, it's, and here I was saying this in the report today that I find interesting. So if we all live the average lifespan of 84 years, which is the Uranus revolution around the sun, we're going to get each gate one time in our life. So we're all getting gate 23. Whoever's alive, this is it, this year.
This is the time.
It's about a year and 3 months for each gate, more or less. And so to have it in such a potent new moon, with the sun and the moon in 43 and all this other individual circuitry, because we've got Pluto in gate 60, which we didn't mention yet. And we talked about gate 55 is where Saturn is. And then with Jupiter in 24, so just a tremendous amount of individual activation, right? And so I think finding our voice right now, hearing our voice, it's not about necessarily doing anything about it. That's your strategy. Our strategy will always, be the decision maker. But hearing what we have to say right now, just what comes out, could be surprising and could be important.
Absolutely. And I think I always like to take it to the big, huge picture and the mystical part of it. And the I really feel nurtured and held. And, I didn't have parents to speak of. And so these codes, these transits feel like my parents. They feel like the things that take care of me, the things that guide me along the way. And I just can see so plainly, and it feels so supportive and nurturing to see the expansion of our individuation, the every opportunity to individuate, every opportunity to say and express and be who we are in the world is just given to us on this beautiful silver platter over and over and over again. And so I think that this is a beautiful opportunity to find spiritual equanimity in the limitation of being God in form.
That was beautiful.
Yeah.
Very nice. And
We
from
are-
to explain it in technical terms from the gates, they were all there. I mean, gate 60 is the gate of limitations. It is the channel of acceptance. The idea of acceptance through mutation, overcoming limitations, accepting limitations. Gate 55 is Saturn's in line 1, where it's been for almost a month and a half now. The line of cooperation, which is cooperating with powerful forces. And that's part of what I feel spiritual equanimity is. It's riding the cyclical nature of the solar plexus through the hope and despair, but finding balance in that. And I think that's why
Absolutely.
having Saturn there and its structural integrity of Saturn can bring some sort of stability in that gate. And gate 24, as you just finished with, is going over and over it. We are doing that. But it's just so really, and I love the way you share it, Brandon, it is supportive. The individual circuitry, because it brings the uncertainty, it can lead to fear and anxiety. But if we apply creativity to this part of ourselves, whether they're defined or not, they are part of our circuitry. They exist within the matrix that we're experiencing. Applying attention to that and creativity and nurturing that is really powerful right now.
Yeah, it's all there to support you. So I love the last push. This is what it feels like to me, the last push before. I mean, I know things aren't going to change automatically and suddenly, and it's going to be over time, but I can already feel somewhat of a new form of relating, a new form of being emotionally aware, a new form. Say it again. Sustaining through, being sovereign in the chaos, no matter what is happening, to being true, to not selling yourself out, your authentic expression of self. And this remembering that we are energy and form. I think that that's what all of this is pointing to, is to reminding us that we are the infinity. We are every possibility, only limited by the biology that we inhabit. But let's just play with it, right? It's not limitation. It's just the form, the costume we chose. And so it's inviting us to learn how to play in it. And I think that that's fun.
I have a question in regards to the transits that bridge our splits. So right now I have a long transit with gate 36 being activated by Neptune, and that bridges one of my splits, or the 36 and the 55 both bridge my split. Does that make those what would normally be a strong electromagnetic with another person less strong because the planets are already defining it? So is it like, am I less aware of those electromagnetics with another person since I am defined by the transits?
I think that's a great question.
Yeah, that is a great question, Johnny. And I think that what we want to hear is your experience having gone through that, because I think the more conversation of people that are actually aware of the information and really examining it, we need to know. I don't think anyone can say exactly what anyone else's experience is going to be, but there are the nuances of that. You know, when you're talking about the 55 and the 36 being bridging gates, what is that? Has that been experienced when it's another person and not a longer term transit? But now we have Saturn in 55, and it went in retrograde in 55, so it even extended that period. It's definitely a few months. I forget the exact time period, but in 36 is Neptune's in 36 for 3 years, over 3 years, off and on. So, yeah, I don't know that we can define a definitive answer of that, but it is a nuance that I think any self-reflection is going to be fun to hear about. You know.
So over this summer, I met a new group of people. I got invited in. 36 had been transiting, and it hooks me up to my 35.5, and that's been its own experience. But this new fractal, this new network, not new, but it's extended through more close. It is my fractal. I've taken on a lot of conditioning that I hadn't mindfully and consciously gone through like I would normally do, and have recognitions and move through. And so it's that action without awareness leads to emotional crisis. And so I'm a projector. I take on conditioning. And there is this 4131.4, and it's guilt motivated. That's the other half of my incarnation cross, the other being 28, 27. Those are need. So need and guilt. That was a big thing to pay attention to. Why did I get this invitation? And it's my fractal, and it was under a 44. And so there's needs and things that needed to sort of be corrected. And with the 31, it's deeply just about recognizing half the time what is needed and what's not right. And that mindfulness is so key, because I'm here in a way to help guide awareness by asking the right questions. And I'm still formulating what those questions are because I got in my own way. But that's what happened. Emotional crisis on my part, emotional crisis on their part, and I'm going to have that emotional crisis as a projector until I've gotten through that recognition at this point. It doesn't go away. And so this other person is having their own, and then I'm having my own, and it wasn't supposed to be like that. And it's not about shoulds, it's about a recognition and the awareness, because the awareness is the key, because the moment you have that recognition of what it's about, it resolves. And so I'm slowly moving through that, because I have this queued up things that hadn't quite had the recognition and mindfulness that I needed to have in order to take mindful actions, as well as mindfully see what they were bringing. And I don't have to address theirs. They don't even have to invite me. It's just that I have the recognition and it just moves through. So that's my experience so far. It's been interesting because just that mindfulness, the moment I'm asking the question, really what's going on here? Oh yeah, have I been taking mindful action? Am I mindful in my actions? Did I just go and do this? Because that's where the crisis comes up. If you're in fear, if you're in anxiety, if you're about tomorrow because you have the split 57 and you're not now, you're not mindful. And you're not mindful with the people that are inviting you, and you're not being with them in that mindfulness. You're not taking mindful engagement with them. And so it causes crisis in the relationship. Gay split, fourth line. So that's been my experience so far. And this is the conclusion I'm coming to. I don't know if that helps or not, but it's been huge for me to realize that.
We have a comment, and if anyone wants to reply to that, please go ahead. I saw Genoa for a moment, so hi, Genoa. Thanks for taking a peek. So just a comment from Nancy was, she says that she does feel more comfort when bridged by transit, not by human aura. For example, her daughter's 34 bridging her 10. It doesn't feel great, but when transits brought 34, she felt the power that is within her, not from someone else. And so it is a good point that these, kind of like what you were saying, how these planets can be your friends. These planets can be your parents. They can be your allies. Just that you build a, you build a connection to, right. Yeah.
So then there's the cognition and the awareness of why they're there.
Yeah, and so I guess we can pull up your chart, Nancy, just from that comment. Unless anyone has any more comments or wants to look at Johnny's triple splits.
Brandy, do you find that you're still looking for gate 11?
Oh, and then a question from Ashley. She asks, Brandy, are you still looking for gate 11?
Looking, no. Appreciating, yes. Being able to experience the spectrum of gate 11. Beautiful question, because, and it ties into what you were saying, because the conditioning, and what Nancy was saying, the conditioning from someone that has the gate, right? They still have the gate, they have the conditioning that comes along with it. That's a whole movie to watch.
Yeah.
And so every gate 11 that I experience now with this equanimity is an entire movie to watch. But then the experience of gate 11 in the transit is so pure. Yeah. Is pure. It's something that like enlivens me instead of something to watch. Cool question.
All right, I'm going to pull up Nancy's chart, and then if anyone has comments, analysis, maybe we can play the bridging gate game you were talking about, Ashley. So let's find that really quick. Just a moment here. Here we are. Okay, that should be. I'm just going to quickly omit the birth date, as I always try to do that when I'm able to. So, one moment. Here we are. Okay, so here we have Nancy, and we have. So you were saying about gate 10, but is this not the right body graph then? Because 34 is not a bridging gate in this case. Well, I guess we're working with a wide split, so I guess you're saying like 34 to 10, and then 31, 1, or 33. So, yeah, so this is, let's see. So with wide splits, there's really an interesting way of analyzing this, and it is a little bit also, Ra being quite bombastic, but I do think there's some truth in it. Where when he talks about the The wide split having a very different quality from the simple split. That is, if it only takes one gate to bridge that split, there can be the quality of being willing to compromise in relationships and things like that, being self, kind of blaming yourself sometimes for not having that gate, even if you shouldn't blame yourself. And maybe that deconditioning is learning to accept and love yourself, even though you may feel that you are lacking in some way. I see here you say the wide split, gates 20, 57, 2, 34, 15, 1, 33, 33, 31, and 33, and channels 34, 20, 20, 57, 16, 48. So, right, there's different ways of kind of analyzing the wide split chart, and I'm open to hearing others, but one of the sort of bombastic claims that Ra makes, it's kind of an interesting approach. It's that the wide split is also here to make relationships work, but they have a very different issue than that of, and maybe I even use the word issue, a different configuration, where with the simple split, you're learning all about that bridge gate or the multiple bridge gates that would bridge those two areas of definition. And so then you can bring that wisdom from what you've learned to sort of be able to realize the value or how important it is for a relationship to have the qualities of those gates. But with the wide split, it's much more a theme of experiencing the other as lacking. Like 4816 is like, these people just don't have the skills. They don't have the talent. They're not very good. If only they were better at what they were doing. If only they were better at communicating. If only they knew how to care better. I mean, they're trying to care, but they're caring with boxing gloves on, and they need, they don't have any dexterity, right, in their caring. Or that, 5720 can also be experiencing the other as lacking, as not really being aware in the now, or not really knowing, not knowing what they're doing in the now and things like that. These people really don't know what they're doing. And then with that, 3420, right? That they endlessly procrastinate, that they don't get things done, that they just they're all talk, but they're no action, right? It's really like what is lacking. That 3420 is lacking. Nobody's getting anything done. That 1648 is lacking. Nobody has the skills, and so on. And so what Ross says is really interesting here, and it is perhaps one of his more bombastic sayings, but what he says is it's not that the wide split in their not self is pointing the finger and blaming others all the time, and then they suddenly wake up to their design and stop blaming people. It's not that they're actually wrong about any of this. Other people are incompetent. Other people are endlessly procrastinating. Other people are doing all these things the wide split claims. Instead, what the waking up is taking responsibility for communicating clearly to the other what they can do to make the relationship work. So instead of you're procrastinating it's you're procrastinating. What I need from you is for us to come to a compromise here where we now have an agreement in a relationship that this is how we're going to proceed, and so on. Yeah. Yeah, right. The cosmos is teaching us emotional intelligence. Wonderful. Yeah, and it's not that they have to have some defined ego promise to always do it or something like that. It's literally just through respecting each other's authority, and you can ask them, or you can invite them, or you can ask them to inform you how they feel about it when the time is right, or you can trust their lunar cycle process, or however that authority looks. There's a tremendous respect for the other. But it's no longer expecting the other to read your mind in terms of what they could do to make the relationship work. And it's shifting it from the other lacking to the question of what could they do to make this work? How do I communicate to them what they might be able to do? And of course, if they don't have 3420, it's not just you tell them, don't procrastinate, get more done. That's not going to be it. But there are going to be things that you can become aware of that would allow the relationship to function in a healthy way.
You can stop expecting them to not procrastinate.
Yeah, exactly. That as well. So yeah, and I'm curious to hear what others think of the wide split and the other ways. And I also really liked your also focus, Lasita, when we looked at Dave's chart, not on the split, but this is something I've noticed that you're quite good at, which is, to remind us what's there, not just what's not there. And I really like that you bring it back to what is there. And this sort of return to self, especially when we have this wide split between the lower and the upper in that sense, but between the ajna and the throat, which is going to be about sharing knowledge and sharing what you know, versus that 952 and 2838 and this bottom section that really is the authority and the type and brings the satisfaction. And so we could even say that part of this split is for the other and part of the split is for you. So, and if anyone else has any comments.
Well, I think everything is also for you, even if it's outer authority. I mean, everybody benefits from that self-empowerment that channel of structuring will bring to Nancy. But that's the most conscious part of her chart. So that's also maybe the temptation, because that feels so good to be living in that aspect of herself. And the discipline may be to be able to sink deeper into herself and feel what she has to offer. There too, so much of it is for oneself and for others in all the parts.
Yeah, that is a good point, that even our outer authority, which may be so beneficial for others, is ultimately helpful for us and can help us to really feel the fulfillment of expressing our fullness and so on. And yeah, I'm just kind of thinking how that structuring, that making more efficient and so on, that it can be just so useful for the people who recognize its value, but also for yourself. I mean, for instance, Ra had that channel, and others weren't as excited as he was or as enthused about how quickly he could make breakfast. But he had his kind of, wow, he could make eggs and toast and coffee and eat it and wash the dishes in 10 minutes flat. And everybody else is spending half an hour for breakfast. And do you know how efficient it is if you save 20 minutes a day for the rest of your life? What you can do with that extra 20 minutes? I mean, this is 4323 territory, right? And there is kind of an excitement with that structuring there. So, but yeah, it absolutely is for yourself as well. And that's a great point.
Something came alive in me that I could share when you said that. Something that I have found in this last 6-8 months is that everything that I say is for me. Like Ross says, when I die, I take you all with me. And so it's such...
Just a tiny correction. I believe that was the man who called himself God who said that. Yeah, just...
Yes, the man who Ra met, who called himself God, said that I am God, because when I leave, I take you all with me. And I am God too, and so are you. And so I feel like everything that I say when I'm in my correct trajectory, right? I follow my body into the places and spaces that are for me. And when I am able to articulate whatever it is that's coming out, I hear it and say, oh shit, that was for me. And almost always, if I listen to what I say to anyone who comes in front of me, it feeds me, it nurtures me, it is vitamins and minerals for my soul, the things that come out of my mouth. And I think that that's part of my split as well, because my head gets to hear now what my body really knows. And so I think that that's valuable.
G to the throat, too. G to the throat.
Oh, well, yeah, G to the throat, that's that too. Yeah, and it's all unconscious, so there's all of those components happening at the same time.
You're an inspiration for me.
Yeah, I got some really nice advice from Meher Madon, who's a gifted channel, and she studies all sorts of esoteric things. And what she had said was, what's so important when you're teaching, when you're speaking, when you're really putting out the information is, because I was saying how I really tend to adapt to my audience, through Undefined Throat and all these things. And she said, well, that very well may be. But at the end of the day, you are really speaking to a something bigger than that room, something bigger than that history. And so she said to not get hung up on what the capacity of the direct audience is, because really your main duty is to speak your truth and not to, it's very empowering. It's to not compromise your truth because, undefined solar plexus might be afraid that they won't be able to handle it, or undefined ego might want to prove how good you are at tiptoeing around defending them or something like that. And instead it was much more just, no, your expression it's kind of the same thing. It is ultimately for you, but it's also for the cosmos, and it does have an effect, even if the people who directly hear it may not directly know the effect. It might echo through them to someone else, or
And
it might,
some sense of like reverberation of, oh shit, that was just said. And it feels really good. It feels, it feels helpful to all of us, me included.
Yeah, and there's a comment from Nancy that she agrees, 43.2 to 23.2, everything she says is for her own struggling. Everything she doesn't say is for her own stillness. And that's a nice little bit of poetry there. Let me just once again showing her body graph where we get some of those keynotes. I see Rachel joined. Rachel Palella. Rachel.
Hi, Rachel.
Yeah, great to have you join. And so this is kind of what Nancy was talking about with her stillness and her channel of concentration, and then her struggle in her 2838, and how what she says and doesn't say both kind of relate to that. What she's saying being kind of connected through the individual circuitry to the 2838, and then that I also have fully designed side 952, and I can notice how we could call it absent-mindedly, but it's not like in a befuddled way. I mean, if we take it literally, absent mind. The mind isn't there. It's automatic. I just notice that I'm organizing all of the pins into the right pile, and I'm noticing that I'm organizing all the things, and it just kind of works. Yeah.
I read from Raw once in interpreting splits that. Should I resay that?
You're saying from Ra that you with interpreting split definition.
Yeah, to follow whatever the lines of what dominant circuitry they have, and I use that, and I wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, that's a great
Except
technique.
for her with the individual and collective, would be more the bridging gates, I guess.
Right. So, because Nancy has individual and collective circuitry in her definition, that you would look to those bridging gates as preferred over, for instance, tribal bridging, or also in this chart we can see like completely undefined solar plexus with only two gates in the entire 7-channel solar plexus system.
Fascinating. I would love to hear her.
And then Randy said, your G center is fascinating, and she would love to hear you talk about that. If you would, Nancy. Now, do you want to talk about your G center? She also loves your poetry, which I think is a sentiment many of us share, and artwork and much else. And then Nancy wrote, when others find it helpful, their interpretation speaks about them.
Yes, touche.
And then Randy says, touche. So, I don't know if you would like to speak at all about your experience of having an undefined G center and having 4 gates there. And then Lasita's comment that Nancy has a lovely choice of words. Yeah, I agree.
I think the fact that when you use the word lovely, choice of words is from your interpretation, which for me as a second line, I think there is a saying recently I really enjoy is there is never something wrong, but it's the interpretation that is responsible for the wrongness. But then the interpretation itself, I guess, is like for undefined centers. There is never a fixed interpretation. And all the things that we think is the interpretation of the now carries all the cellular memories, all the things from the past. So does it mean that all the past you carry with you was being wrong? So those kind of philosophical paradox that I often see, that's my 4323 at the second line. But then with undefined G, I can really see that often I prefer the bridging through the G center. Like say if people have not 15, I do not like people have 15. I can feel I just been pulled into the region. Yeah, because for my daughter, she has an entire channel, 515. And even the menstrual cycle, she's living with me. Like if she's having a menstrual cycle new moon, my full moon date will just be 2 weeks in advance and follow her flow. It doesn't feel right for me. Yeah, but I often feel quite a lot of comfort, especially with individual bridging. So second gate and first gate, those are my most comfortable bridging gates comparing to the rest. 31 and 33, it doesn't necessarily feel, it's very neutral for me. It means that I often can see when people coming to me with 31, 33, I just have to be more listening. There is more listening and they feel much better. But, doesn't mean that the words they speak through my direction, speak about my past is not necessarily true. But when there is a transit, I can see the transit bridging of 31, 33 really give me this potentiality to be able to share. Yeah. And then I think one of the most difficult bridging gate for me so far that I recognize, in addition to 15, is the 34. The power of becoming a manifesting generator. Like recently, I think last couple of days when there is a bridging of 34, 1 and 2, it felt very weird. It felt like I'm in this double, you look at the movie, you put it like a speed up like 2 times. So that's how I operate. And all the people say, you talk like a double up of your original speed. They are watching a speedy movie. And it doesn't feel right. It feels like my whole body was vibrating. And when the night comes, I just collapse. So I didn't enjoy the feeling of being a manifesting generator with the 34 and the other bridging. Yeah, so there's something I can say. Oh, and the last thing maybe with gate 25, I think for my undefined ego, the biggest learning lesson is everything to do with gate 25 in a certain way. Maybe that's my personality Mars. Everything learning about the woman heart through the gate 25. Yeah.
I loved all of that, and so many interesting points there, and just even just being able to have this vocabulary to be able to experience such a nuance of what it feels like to have 34, what it feels like. I mean, this is something that is a gift we all share, which is getting this vocabulary that it's like that wheel of feelings where they're like, are you feeling happy? Are you feeling sad? I'm feeling gate 34, okay? Like, we don't have words in the English language to describe what this, but you did a great job of describing it, that kind of 2x speed of kind of old, Benny Hill movie running around. Yeah, that's very gate 34, and especially that whole channel, that 3420. But no, I just loved all of that, and I do dream of having a book of bridging gates, and also just I know some people are trying to do this at different times to compile sharings about the gates, but also, I mean, there is something magical about just being able to describe it in the actual, as we, I mean, it's kind of like when you compile all these things and try to put them into a formula, you lose some of the individual nuance. So I just really appreciate that sharing. That's really wonderful. Well, I don't know how everyone's doing on their energy. I think that was a really, really beautiful place to end on, unless others do want to discuss. I see, Ricky says, thank you, Nancy, so beautiful, and I completely agree. And I'm certainly open to if we want to have any more final discussion, but that was also just really enjoyable. So maybe we can wrap up. What do we feel like here?
Just like I had a full course meal.
Ivy says she feels like she had a full course meal. Ricky's quiet tonight but grateful. Well, that is quite all right to be quiet, and I appreciate that, and I'm appreciative of you being here. And you know, people don't think that I'm ever quiet with my undefined throat, but I actually am sometimes. I actually am. You know, Johnny is now living with me. Well, he knows I'm quiet. He comes over, he goes, "What you working on?" I go, "I'm just working." He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Yeah, can I help you?" Like, that's kind of my attitude. That's when I'm quiet.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I'm in my
my
9.
quiet is when I'm in my 9:52, or sometimes my
You're not here.
34 comes out. I'm like, yes.
Yes.
So I definitely have a. That's when yes means no.
Yes.
Yes. May I help you? I'm in my behind the curtain place.
I might do it for you, but no.
And then Monique also says, same, quiet, but so grateful. Well, I really appreciate you joining, Monique, and I'm excited. I guess just a couple just little matters, of course. So stay tuned very soon for an announcement from Mike about his class, which is coming up, and that's something very exciting. I'll just leave it mysterious like that. But very excited about that. And then also stay tuned on Signpost. So the class will not be on Signpost, but it is definitely support Mike, and it's going to be really cool. I kind of have a little behind-the-scenes peek on some of it, and I'm excited. And then Monique will be starting a new radio program, TBD, for Signpost. So I'm really excited about all of this human design radio we have. Something James Alexander was just saying was that human design really does have a community and a culture, and it needs cultural artifacts, and that it's so important and valuable that he was kind of checking out our offerings on Signpost. And Signpost is not predominantly an educational thing. It's a community of professionals. I mean, we are educators, and we are all sharing in this learning and sharing in this education, both giving and receiving education, but it's not that you sign up to Signpost to learn human design. I mean, you sign up to Signpost because you're part of a community of like-minded individuals, and putting that first, it's so nice to actually have the artifacts of that community. It's really nice to have like a radio program where, for those who missed it, I've actually posted the replay. But we have now James Deans doing, so the other James, or they'll have to fight over who gets the moniker Other James, but we have Zen James, I guess we can call him, who runs a metaphysical bookstore in Oregon, and is just a rapper, and you know, among other things. And yeah, we have Projector James. But versus, what should we call James Alexander? Is that Devil James? Is that Devilish James? He's 45 James. Okay, I think we need more nicknames here. So, but in any case, so James Deans now has a new program on Signpost that just launched last week. It's every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific. So 8 p.m. for us here in Santa Fe, 3 a.m. in Europe, unfortunately, but maybe you can catch the replay, or maybe people staying up. And it's wonderful. It's a 2-hour program, and on his first episode, he played songs from Ra and songs from Peter Berv. So he's kind of highlighting music from different human design musicians. Then he talked a lot about his own experience and what brought him to human design, as well as his experience in Agni Yoga and Theosophy. He had an interview, and he's going to do different interviews each week. This week, he's doing an interview with Richard Beaumont, who also joined Signpost. And so I'm excited. But, you know, one of his first questions was if it's about education, and I think James said the right thing, which is, well, sure, but it's not really just educational. I mean, it's kind of nice to actually have something for us. It's nice to have a radio program where we get to, like, it's kind of like not human design for the masses, it's human design for the people that really care about human design, and it's kind of nice. So I just want to encourage everyone to check that out. I'm really excited for Monique's radio show, which is TBD, and I know we have to kind of workshop that a bit.
I could say that I was just on Monique's podcast, and she is a brilliant facilitator. That's all I wanted to say.
Absolutely, and I really appreciate her joining Signpost. And then also, if you haven't yet, please check out Mike's Zeitgeist, Surfing the Zeitgeist. It's really been going really well, and I may be filling in, but we'll see. It sounds like you might just be doing it the whole time. Mike will be traveling. But besides that, we also are going to have some more guest speakers coming up. We have Anhad Singh, known as Human Design Heretic, a bit of a meme lord himself on Instagram, to go head to head with Chaitanya FX, the reigning human design meme lord. And we should get the two of them on a podcast. That'd be great. But he'll be the guest this Tuesday for Zeitgeist, and then the following Tuesday we have Brynja Magnuson as a guest. We also have a couple of additional events that were scheduled that were not in the November update. We have Brandy Gilmartin joining for a talk on human design and business, and that will be about an hour and a half before the weekly entrepreneurship support group with Abe and Janica. So tune into that on, I believe it's this Friday. I have to check the event calendar. And then the Monday, a week from today, we have Teresa Brindeman and Mike in conversation. And that was such a lovely conversation last month. That was one of the most highly lauded events. And that's also available for replay if you missed that. I see Ricky says, regarding promoting signposts, she wonders how to say that. To know HD is so subjective. Well, I trust you to promote it however you want. And, we can always, if you say something that we feel is not in line with our, I don't see that as happening, but we can always just adapt and cross bridges as we get there. And we're also in the process of making more marketing materials. Something that some of you may have missed in the November update as well is just that if you would like a special affiliate link that will actually give you, for every successful sign up, you actually get the first month dues for that. So please email myself or Richard if you would like. Monique says she loves you, Brandy, and she also says she's stoked to join the radio. Thank you. Thank you. So, all right, that's it for me for a little bit of a signpost update, but thank you all for being here. And if anyone would ever like to join on the radio, on air, either as a guest on one of the programs we have or having your own program, anything like that, just let us know because we're into it. And thank you all, and thank you all for tuning in tonight. All right. Yay. Yay us. Okay, thank you. That was my state of the union. Thank you all for joining. Okay. All right. See you all.